Are we on? Excellent. This morning, we're going to be interviewing Chris and Terry about their work throughout the week. But first, I just want to set the scene for that, because we're actually looking at the whole series where we're talking about going over the wall. And that comes from a verse in Genesis where Jacob says to his son Joseph, "You're a fruitful vine growing over a wall, whose branches climb over the wall." And that's a word that's brought to us as a church, and that's about going out, not just being a church on a Sunday, but being about a church that goes out over the wall. And we all go over the wall, don't we, into our week. And we've been talking about our weeks, going into our families, our communities, and our workplaces, and representing God. And that's what we're going to be looking at again this week. And it's a really good thing to do. And just like we've been talking about Jesus being the high priest, he says that we're all priests. And this is what we're going to be looking at. And today I want to just, as a reading, tell a story about what happened to one particular priest. This priest was called Zechariah. And this is like a build-up to Christmas. Did you know that a month today, it will be Boxing Day? Woo! So if you haven't put the decorations up, then get them up, quick! It will be. Who's got their decorations up? 1 or 2, 3. Imagine Christmas. Imagine winter without Christmas there. Anyway, I digress. Looking at Luke chapter 1, starting at verse 5, it says, "In the time of King Herod of Judea, there was a priest named Zechariah who belonged to the priestly division of Abijah. His wife Elizabeth was also a descendant of Aaron. Both of them were upright in the sight of God, observing all the Lord's commandments and regulations blamelessly. But they had no children, because Elizabeth was barren, and they were both well on in years. Once, when Zechariah's division was on duty and he was serving as priest before God, he was chosen by lot, according to the custom of the priesthood, to go into the temple of the Lord and burn incense." Look at how far things have come. In those days, before Jesus, then it was only the priests who could go in and worship the Lord and burn incense in the holy place. And then, it wasn't any old priest on any old day. They had to be chosen, and he was chosen by lot. It was a very privileged thing to do. And again, as we've seen this morning at communion, we've all got that privilege now of going into that holy place. "And when the time for the burning of incense came, all the assembled worshippers were praying," where? Outside the temple, outside the holy place, because they couldn't go in. Come now. "Then an angel of the Lord appeared to Zechariah, standing on the right side of the altar of incense. When Zechariah saw him, he was startled and was gripped with fear. But the angel said to him," and it's got to be hard work being an angel, because whenever you appear to someone, you always have to read the same script. "Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Zechariah, your prayer has been heard. Your wife Elizabeth will bear a son, and you are to give him the name John. He will be a joy and a delight to you, and many will rejoice because of his birth. For he will be great in the sight of the Lord." And again, this is something that we can take out from this. What God said to Zechariah, it said, don't be afraid. God says that to us as well. We can have fear in our lives. We can be gripped by fear of all sorts of things. But about everything, God says, do not be afraid. He doesn't want us to fear. He doesn't want us to be eaten up by fear or struggling with fear. And again, he says another thing which applies to us all. Your prayer has been heard. That's significant as well. It can feel like we pray and pray and pray, and our prayers aren't being heard. That's how it can feel. That's not the truth. The truth, Zechariah must have felt like that. He must have prayed and prayed and prayed about this. And he said, God, you're not hearing my prayer. Yes, God was hearing his prayer. Just because the prayer isn't being answered when and how we want it to be answered doesn't mean he's not hearing it. Doesn't mean he doesn't care. Of course he cares. The message is keep praying. Keep praying. Keep going. Persevere. We have to develop what I would call a mature faith, where we don't say, God didn't answer my prayer, I'm going to give up now. He says, keep praying. Keep praying. Because God does hear our prayer. And he goes on to say, I'm just trying to work out how far I should go with this one. All right, I'll keep going. He talks about John the Baptist, the son of Zechariah. It says in verse 17, he will go on before the Lord in the spirit and the power of Elijah, to turn the hearts of the fathers to their children and the disobedient to the wisdom of the righteous, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord. Zechariah asked the angel, how can I be sure of this? I'm an old man and my wife is well on in years. The angel answered, I am Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God, and I have been sent to speak to you and to tell you this good news. It's like, come on, I know. And now, it's always interesting me, but it says, and now you will be silent and not able to speak until the day this happens, because you did not believe my words, which will come true at their proper time. Don't quite know why I said that to Zechariah. It's just saying, look, God is, I don't see it as a punishment. It's saying, look, you've got to believe, mate, God is God. He didn't strike him dumb for the rest of his life. He's just saying, I want you to know that God is God. I don't want to hear from you anymore saying, but how can this be? Lord, this isn't possible. How can it be, Lord? We don't want any more of that for a while. Just keep quiet. Keep quiet. Just shh, shush. He just got shushed. Shh, 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 shh. There we go. I've lost my place now. Meanwhile, the people were waiting for Zechariah. They were waiting outside because they can't come into the presence of God, and wondering why he stayed so long in the temple. When he came out, he could not speak to them. They realized he had seen a vision in the temple, for he kept making signs to them, but remained unable to speak. Can you picture that scene? Can you picture it? It's like, where have you been for so long? You can imagine how it went, can't you? If you don't, I'd hopefully helped you. But this was one of the readings that comes up before Christmas, and around that time, lots of strange things were happening. You know, Joseph and Mary, strange things happened. I won't go into that one. But we see Zechariah in his role as a priest. And what he was doing there is he was representing God to the people. He went into the holy place. He went into that holy place, and he had two functions there: represent God to the people and the people to God, because they were separated from God. But when Jesus died on the cross, one of the first thing that happened was that the temple curtain, the curtain of the temple, a big, thick, very thick curtain, about 9 inches thick, they reckon, was ripped in two from top to bottom. That was the temple which separated the people from God, which separated God's holy presence from the people. That curtain was ripped. And now we can all go into God's presence. There's no divide. And that means that we're all, as Christians now, we all become priests. We all become priests. And we all have the same role now as Zechariah, representing God to the people and the people to God. That's the role of a priest. And that's our role now in life. The role is to go into our weeks, go into our world, representing God. Being royal priests. It describes us in the Bible as a royal priesthood. We are a royal priesthood. And we're going into whatever situations God calls us, into our families, our wider families, our communities, our workplaces, representing God to those people. And we're also representing those people to God. And both of those things are significant. This is what we're going to be talking to Terry and Chris about in a minute. So how do we represent God to the people? Well, again, we've been looking at this. It's in our lifestyles. The Bible describes us in 2 Corinthians 5, verse 20, as ambassadors for Christ. We are his ambassadors. Wherever we go as his ambassadors, his people, representing him. No pressure. But if we go into our schools, we're representing him. We go into our workplace, we're representing him. We go and see members of our family, we're representing him. We go into our clubs or our sports clubs, or whatever we do, we're representing him. We are his representatives. We are his priests. And then we're representing the people to God. Have you ever said to anybody, I'll pray for you? Just they've told us something. You say, yeah, I'll remember you in my prayers. Have you ever said that? That's massive, you know. It's big. It's not just I'll remember you in my prayers. Yeah, I'll remember you in my prayers. We're being a priest here. We're representing them to God. That's huge. Next time you say, I'll remember you in my prayers, please do. How many times have you said, I'll remember you in my prayers and forgotten to? We're not going to admit to that, are we? No. It's always best when you say, I'll pray for you, to just go away and pray before you forget. But it's massive when we do say that we'll pray for someone. It's significant. When we say to someone, God bless, it's significant. When someone sneezes and we say, bless you, it's significant because we're priests. Take that opportunity. It's a great opportunity. Just wait for someone to sneeze, bless you. Bless you, bless you. Bless the people. We're the priests. Bless them. And get away with that one still. Anywhere. That's a little loophole, isn't it? In the most politically correct place, when someone sneezes, you can still bless them. There we go. So yeah, we're priests, blessing the people, interceding for the people, wherever we are. So we could say, what are the needs of the people that we're around? What are the needs of our workplaces? And make sure that we intercede for those people and those needs. So enough from me. I would like to say, Terry and Chris, come on down. Because of the nature of the recording, you need to grab yourselves a microphone because it's all going directly into the video.
One that's actually...
Yeah, just you can adjust the height. So it's just right for you. He's so cheeky. You've got the microphone, you give him as much stick as you want. Give it to him. Now, nicely, of course, because you're a priest. So, just going to ask you both a few questions because how long have you been at the church here? It's ages, isn't it?
17 years.
17 years. Oh, they need a round of applause. Well done. 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I expect you've been here this long, but I bet a lot of people actually don't know what you do throughout the week for your jobs. So tell us quickly what you do.
I work in a care home for adults with learning disabilities and challenging behaviours. And I've been there 11 years now. And before that, I worked in an office, and I hated it. So, as you say, I took a leap of faith, never done it before, and went in, no idea of what I was getting involved in. Chris did the same. We both thought, enough of that. We're not going to do the routine thing. And 11 years later, I'm still doing it.
Well, that's a huge thing. So more about the challenges of that in a minute. So what do you do, Chris?
I work in an office.
And again, not without its challenges, I'm sure.
Well, yes, I mean, when you're doing accounts and payroll and you've got 20 hairy builders wanting to know what's going on, it's quite challenging sometimes.
Yeah, okay, so we've got a picture of what they're doing, the sorts of things that they do now. So you're priests in those situations, right? According to today's sermon.
Yeah.
According to the truth, you are priests in that. So I'm going to ask you both, how have you represented God in your workplace? Because we go into the workplace, okay, we can't go into the workplace and preach a sermon. Can't say, good morning, are you all sitting comfortably? I'm going to preach you a 20-minute sermon. So how do you represent God in there? How do you go about representing God? Do you get opportunities to say anything? Or is it by how you live, what you say, what you don't say? Whoever wants to chip in first, how do you represent God where you are?
It's difficult sometimes.
Sure.
But I think it depends on who you're talking to and who you're with. But a lot of the guys have said to me, why don't you judge like other people do? And my answer is, Bliz, who am I to judge?
Okay, so that's a good representation of God, that you're going into a place and you're not judging them. Because that's the first thing about a Christian, isn't it? As soon as someone thinks you're a Christian, they think that you're judging them. Isn't that awful? That, again, if we're going into a place, that's one of the first things as priests we can do. We're not here to judge you. That's God's job. Okay, we're here to show God's love. So that is a brilliant representation of God. How else are we representing God in your workplace?
Well, where I work, the home I actually work in, it took a long time for me to sort of build up the strength. People knew I was a Christian, but actually talking to people. And the fact, like you were just saying, I'll pray for you. And some people took it in and some it just went straight over the head. But gradually over the years, people realise I'm not going away. I am what I am, and it's always going to be that way. It's now, instead of being an underground movement, I'm sort of up here now, and people are actually coming to me. Sadly, a few weeks ago, we had one of our residents passed away, and the amount of people that came up to me and said, can you go and pray for him? Can you go? They didn't know what denomination, they didn't, because he was non-verbal. And it was the fact that they were coming up to me and say, can you go and pray for him? Because we knew he was getting close to the edge. And it was even the day he passed away, they asked me to go down to his bedroom. He wasn't there, but just to pray on that whole bedroom. And the balance is, instead of being 60-40 in their behalf, now it's the other way around. And people will come to me and say, what should I do with this? Can you pray for this? Can you pray into that for me? Yeah. And it's like every day when I go to work, I never know what's going to happen. And I get out the car at work and I pray for grace and peace, because I could be sitting in the room like this, thinking, okay, the job's going fine, and then all of a sudden, bang, it goes off. And I just say, okay, Lord, tell me what to do, show me what to do. I need to deal with that situation, I need to deal with that situation. And because a lot of them can't respond to you, they can't say, this is wrong, that's hurting, this is hurting. You've got to take all your skills to work out what is causing that problem. And I just pray to God and say, okay, give me the idea, give me what I need to do here. And it's worked.
So there's two things we can take out of that. That first of all, you're praying to God for the strength to actually approach these situations, which you don't know what's going to happen when, really.
No.
And secondly, that you can actually be a direct witness to him. And it's wonderful to hear that you've got in a place where people are actually coming to you and saying, can you pray for this? Can you pray for that? That just shows that we are priests, isn't it? Because, again, that's the role. The people used to come to the priest and say, we need you to pray for this to God. Can you bring this prayer to God? And you're actually doing that because that person might not be in a position where they're in a direct relationship with God just yet. No. So they're saying, can you pray to your God? Because I know you're in a direct relationship with God. So can you pray? And, when someone asks us to do that, that's a privileged position. And it takes a while to get into that privileged position, doesn't it? It doesn't just happen. And I could suggest two prayers that we can pray on the way to work, which you've just about said, really, Terry. One is, Lord, get me through this day. Give me the strength and the grace and everything I need to get me through. Two, and this is the one that I always used to forget to pray, let me be a witness for you. And that's the key thing. Let me be a priest for you. Let me minister for you today, and whatever opportunities you give, let me take whatever opportunities you give. And the other thing is the other way round. We're representing not God to the people, but also the people to God. So what are the needs in your workplaces? You know, when you pray, what are the sorts of things that you pray for the workplace? I mean, it could be anything from the success of the company you're working for to situations within it. So what sort of needs are there in your workplace, Chris?
For me, it's more about peace for my boss who owns the company, because it's not necessarily about us, but the guys that go onto site, they're representing the company, and for my boss sometimes it's quite stressful, because you need to be able to, obviously you've got to trust the guys that are on site, you've got supervisors on there, but for me, for him, it purely would be peace, so that he didn't have to worry about anything anymore, so that he had the people alongside him who can keep everything straight and true as it should be.
So as a priest, a royal priest, you can be praying that confidently, knowing that God's hearing your prayer.
Constantly, every day.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Terry?
I think mine are sort of along the same sort of lines, because it's like this afternoon I'll go into work and there'll be 9 members of staff, and it's like I pray for both those and the residents that we have, that a lot of the staff have started asking searching questions, haven't they? We had a situation a year or so ago where Chris was talking to one of our members of staff, and he was into the vampires and the occult and all this type of thing, and then he was going to go and start using a Ouija board, and Chris was explaining to him about the fact that you start using that, you open the gate to hell. And with a couple of weeks he'd gone home, he'd thrown all his videos away, he'd thrown the book away. He doesn't watch any of these things again. And I just pray that myself, when I go in, I can reach people exactly the same way. If they've got a problem, I can hopefully, with God's help, is turn it around and them to know that, okay, being a Christian, you know, there's nothing wrong with it. And you can still get on with your life, and you don't just have to be talking God, 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 God all the time. You know, we talk about football, about sports, and Amen. It's like, you know, I'm a normal person underneath all these clothes, and the fact I've got God in me, the fact I've got God in my heart, and I know it works. And as you said, the answer to prayer, I had that 8-9 weeks ago, and I thank everybody for praying for me, and I thank the fact I'm here today talking this way. So, and you.
Yeah, so that just shows us, you know, just through hearing a brief bit about Chris and Terry and their workplaces, just what it means to be a priest in the workplace. It'd be good to pray for you both in a minute. But just to remind us all, before you go anywhere, that this week, wherever we go, we're the priest or the pastor or the minister, however you want to see it. We are that priest in that place, representing God to those people and taking every opportunity we can in our prayers to represent those people to God. And that's what it's about as we go into our weeks. So thank you very much, Terry and Chris. Don't go anywhere, but we'll stop the recording.